Hello, and welcome to the Consider Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Eric King, and along with my co host, Mino Pachan, we're here to talk about all things mental health. Let's get into it.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Consider Your Mind podcast, episode number 12.
Don't say
Last week,
Baker's dozen out here, or a full dozen. Actually, Baker dozen's like 13, ain't
no, wait. Actually, I don't even know.
it?
But anyways, last week we had talked about employment and career paths and issues and how that affects the mental health. So if you guys missed that, go ahead and feel free to go check that out, episode number 11.
Yeah, on the job stressing, man. I know y'all know about it.
It's a real thing, man. It affects your money, pretty much. If you don't, and not in the right mindset, the potential that you could be making is definitely, it's a big difference there if your mind's not right. This week we're just gonna be talking about family conflicts and other things that's going on in the world. So much things happen and you forget that things are a little bit closer to home than you think. So
Real
we'll
life.
also be talking about another podcast that Eric and I both listen to a lot, the Pivot and I Am Athlete. They talked with Trent Williams and Michael Beasley. We'll touch on their issues later on in the show. And just a little funny news on the bright side. It's about comebacks. Mr. Tom Brady is coming back again.
Just that fast. Y'all, if you people remember back in our earlier episodes, man, I think, like maybe our third or fourth episode, we talked about Tom Brady retiring and how, wow, that's a big deal because he's been in the game for so long and how we would need therapy to let it go and all that. Well, clearly, he ain't ready to let it go just that fast.
Right.
And the time we've been doing this podcast, breaking news has happened. We got to retract news, just that
He's
quick.
coming back for what? It's going to be his 23rd season?
I believe so, man. He's going
That's a
to
long
be
time.
45 in August, so 45 years old.
Time.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is young in general terms.
Yeah.
But in football, your grandpa, your great-grandpa at that point.
I'm telling you, man, that's two careers. You've had two really good careers at that point. You can string together two decade-plus long careers, and so that usually doesn't happen. So shout out to that man.
Yes.
He's the
Big
greatest living
112.
American, clearly.
1-2.
He can do what he wants. So it's just funny, though. Hey, consistency. Hey, we've been here that whole time. We've been on the air longer than Tom Brady's been retired. And that's funny to me.
Yeah, that's wild, man. I mean, you got a passion for something, go ahead and do it, man. Enjoy your life, So big ups to Mr. Brady, still capable of moving the way he moves, playing such an aggressive sport.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't imagine suiting up, wearing pads, even at 36.
Yeah.
My knees and everything snap, crackle, and pop as I get out of bed. I don't know how he's doing it, but hey.
Yeah, it'd be hurting suiting up in pajamas, man. But and I think he got some inspiration too. I think they said Cristiano Ronaldo, the soccer player, reached out to him. LeBron James as well, because they're like, hey man, don't let him retire you. Keep it going. And it's one of the things we mentioned in last episode, the difference between just something you have to do and something that's a calling. The difference between just a job and a vocation. Something that you really have a passion or call to do that you can't help but do. That's a whole nother level, of living and of being. And you know what? I can't be mad at somebody for not wanting to give that up. Make them rip the jersey off you, man.
He even said himself like a couple years ago, because everyone was saying, no, he should be retiring soon. And he's like, why does everybody want me to quit? I'll retire when I suck, when I can't play anymore.
Yeah.
And last season, he proved that he could definitely still play. So.
Yeah, he was led the league in, arguably could have been MVP, led the league in touchdowns, yards. And then LeBron James has his own podcast thing, I believe it's called The Shop.
Yeah, that's another good one, too.
Yep,
that's
exactly.
A good one.
And so he had Childish Gambino on there last one.
I saw the latest one I saw, he was talking with Jay-Z.
Okay, yep, he did have one with
one
Jay-Z. Yeah, that's a dope one. But in this one, he was talking about, how people want you, retired. And he's talking about, it's different if he was doing bad, but he's like, yo, man, I'm still nice out here. I'm still doing really good. He's scoring 50 points a game still when, if he wants to. And so it's hard, again, just because we can't conceive it. It makes us more comfortable if somebody, dims themselves down. If they, stop it, then that gives us kind of permission to say, oh, well, see, everybody, there's limits, and look at the limits that everybody hits. But when somebody tests those limits and goes beyond that, it makes other people uncomfortable, actually. Greatness can make people uncomfortable, just the same way it can lift people up and show them what's possible and push their limits. Just like after somebody broke the what was it 4 minute mile, like that was the 4 minute mile, right? It was like impossible. Then all of a sudden somebody did it, and then right after that, like 4 or 5 people did it.
Yeah. I mean,
barrier
you
breaker.
think about
Shout
it,
out to
it's just
them.
like they always say records are made to be broken. And even just at the combine, I don't think they gave these athletes the correct time on the 40. Those dudes were running like 4:1,
Yeah, man.
but they clock him at like 4:3, 4:4. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, he's ran that fast that he didn't even stop the time on time.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Because
unfortunate.
it's such a short amount of time. Short amount of time too. And again, for our non-sports fans, we're sorry, but we're talking about the draft and the combine, where they have the guys do all the workouts and measure them, how big they are, how fast they are. Some people call it the underwear Olympics. These guys just big old dudes in bodysuits running around trying to prove to people they're great
They're
athletes.
worth it.
Yeah, that they're worth it. Yeah, that they're worth it. But hey, it's part of the culture now, man. But there's a lot of things that are unhealthy in our culture.
Yes,
That,
unfortunately.
yeah, it's unfortunate. There's a lot of things that are unhealthy in this world, and that can become all too common.
And you're just speaking of just the athletes too. Like another thing that I'm kind of anxious or kind of wanting to see or excited about to see happen. I remember LeBron saying he would like to at least play one season with his son in the NBA.
Yeah,
That would be wild to see.
it's looking.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If Bronny comes in, and he's like, I'll be wherever my son is. Like, can you imagine that? Whatever team drafts him, they're gonna get LeBron too.
I mean, yeah,
It's wild. It's not even about the money no more. It's like, man, I'll come play for free. Like,
it's
just to play with
perfect.
my
It's
son.
guaranteeing his son a spot in the NBA. Basically,
For real.
he's going to get
For real.
drafted. Somebody just because
Come on,
they
Wolves. Come on, Wolves.
know. Yo, man, shout out to Cat. Just dropped a whole bunch of points, about like 60 points or something.
Did he?
Yeah, he just dropped like
Oh,
50 or
the
60
Wolves are
points.
actually doing pretty good, huh? I haven't
Yeah,
been keeping up,
exactly.
but
So we're
We're
putting
doing
this
pretty
on record this season, 2022. Dang it, we got some talent. All right, they're putting it down. Shout out to the Timberwolves.
Edwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Edwards is
they're
a
putting
monster.
it down, giving us a little bit of hope. But
Yes.
but no, to your point, building that foundation for the future, because it's happened in other sports. Ken Griffey Jr. played with Ken Griffey Sr. Actually in baseball. So
He was probably my favorite baseball player growing up. I don't play or watch baseball like that, but I knew who he was.
mhm.
I had the game on Sega, like
Yeah.
all that stuff. I only
Oh
knew
yeah,
baseball 'cause of
Sega.
him.
Yeah, the sports games, absolutely. Him and Deion Sanders, like Bo Jackson, it was
Prime
just like
time.
household names.
Yo.
Exactly, there was just
Bo
household
Jackson.
names that we just knew.
Bo Jackson made me like football. I remember watching him just running through everything. I was playing Tecmo Bowl, picking the Raiders just because I had Bo Jackson. He could just run through everybody.
Hmm.
Man.
Hmm.
The myth of Bo Jackson.
Exactly, and the power of video games. Rest in peace, John Madden. The power of video
Yes.
games, and how it can teach people things and popularize sports, and change the industry. There's people in the NFL right now, people from other countries that learn how to play football literally through playing Madden.
They learn things from
Play
video
through
games. It's a good way for
playing
kids
video
to
games.
learn
Same
too
thing with
nowadays.
Tecmo Bowl, and yeah, exactly. There's things that people are learning through technology. So,
My little nephew that kid is glued to the screen. Like he was teaching me how to use like the iPad.
mhm.
I felt old at that point. Like he was just like they know
The
how to do
iPad
everything.
was
I'm
out
like,
before
yo,
he was born. We thought we knew the iPad.
yeah.
No,
But he learned everything. He's such a smart kid. Like he does everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like he understands, I guess, the essentials of starting a fire because a video game showed him what he needed to collect to make fire. So
Mhm.
I have to find dry wood, and I could rub like sticks together to make fire. I'm like, oh really? So he's like learning all these like things. I'm like, okay. But again, that helped me. I'm a video game player, and it helped me mentally. Just when I'm stressed out or everything, like my mind is racing, I just play my favorite video game and just get lost in that world and go somewhere else instead of having these constant thoughts take over my mind and just affect me to the point where I just end up being depressed for no reason. So video
No.
games are a good escape for me. So
No, yeah, absolutely. Again, too much of anything's bad for you.
yep,
So
moderation, folks.
exactly, moderation. But video games can help you sometimes stay still for a quick second. There's a little bit of escapism there that can be healthy. For a time, if it prevents you from doing something else to the extreme. So,
Right.
Yeah, we're all about moderation. Nothing, is just inherently evil or bad or anything like that. But that kind of comes from an idea, though, that we have when we're feeling bad. It's like we need to do something about it. It's not okay to just feel bad.
Right.
That's an unhealthy culture that we have here. In America, it's like the idea that people, ought to be happy. We should be so grateful. We live in the land of the free, home of the brave, the greatest country on earth. Look how bad other things, are in the world. Look at what's going on in the world, wars and all this stuff. You should be so happy. Look how, privileged you are. And so then, it creates an extra burden because it's like, then you feel guilty for being unhappy.
Hmm.
You feel like unhappiness is, increased by being, unhappy about being unhappy. And there's a guilt there that just doesn't have to be there. It's an extra burden that's like artificially put on an already, bad enough problem.
Right. And there's so many other things going on in the world. Like, you could always say someone else always has it worse. That's not
Exactly.
supposed to make me feel better.
No.
Like why does that person have to suffer more than I do? And I'm already suffering a lot. It's
Hmm.
not fair, but it is what it is. So it's like I can, it's like I'll appreciate what I have and just keep it simple. And that's, mentally for me, that just makes it easier. Simplify things for yourself because, yeah, you know that there are other people in worse situations, but at the end of the day,
Hmm.
that's not your problem. You know,
Hmm. No.
unfortunately, but that's a time to be selfish because you gotta worry about you too. I can't help my friend if I can't help myself, and I can't help my friend if I'm not here. You know what I mean?
Boy,
So
that ain't the truth.
you gotta help yourself before you can help others. And that goes for everything.
Hmm.
You know.
No, and I
When
think a lot of times too, it's easier to just skip a step. I'm guilty of this. It's a little confession here. Kind of working it through with my therapist. I like to skip steps, even with this show. Sometimes I like to skip to, okay, when we're at this level and we have this in the studio, da da da. It's like, well, again, that keeps me in an idealized world. That keeps me in a positive space. Keeps me moving forward through obstacles. However, it doesn't ground me in the work that needs to be done.
All right.
You know, that's like again I think we do it with relationships too. We can meet somebody, they can be wonderful, and we skip all the way to 2 kids deep in a house. However, like if you actually start to think about what's going on in your relationship, hey, when's the last time you even gave that person flowers? When's the last time you actually paid attention to an issue that person's having with their family that they've told you about, or stressed out, this, that, and third. And it's easier again to create a safe space for ourselves or in a fantasy world of when we get to that point, because at least for me, again speaking for myself, that's easier than thinking about the work and actually going through the work of actually getting to that point.
Right. And I mean, even like when it comes to family, those are the people that you want to be able to rely on the most,
Hmm.
right? You figure they should have your best interest at heart.
You think
But
they have the most invested in you, the people
right,
that raised you, fed you, put a lot into you.
and because even when you get like something that you're dealing with medically, like we'll jump right into one of the shows that we were watching earlier with Trent Williams getting the bad news, and people are
Hmm.
just so used to one thing, and it's like, oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about it.
Hmm.
Pretty much, if you want to give him a little background on Trent Williams, who he
Yeah,
is and
yeah.
what he was there dealing with.
Yeah. Trent Williams, again, we spoke about it right in the beginning of the show. He has this documentary out called Silverback, and it kind of documents his journey dealing with cancer. And who he is, he's a left tackle. He's a football player, big time football player. He used to play for the, formerly known as the Redskins, now the Commanders, Washington Commanders. He plays for San Francisco 49ers now. And like he had these lumps on his head. Like he was playing in his hair one day, just a meeting board, started playing with his hairline and started noticing his lumps. And kind of anybody who knows the Dr. Pimple Popper, type of thing.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't watch that.
yeah, exactly. Shout out to all, the rest of my popaholics out here. It looked like kind of one of those things like cysts, just kind of some cysts that were kind of growing on his, kind of forehead, right above his hairline and stuff. And so that's when he was consulting with the doctors, asking about it. They said, okay, it looks like cysts, no big deal. And so this went on for years. A couple more started to pop up. So it went on for like 5 years. And in that time, he had other surgeries, on his legs, on because he's a football player. They have surgeries, and he was always trying to get it fixed. He's like, hey, while you got me under, can you take care of this too? But here's the thing: who is he consulting? The team doctors. These football team doctors are trying to keep you on the field. They don't want any more complications as possible. They want your health enough to keep you on the field on Sunday, not necessarily your long-term thing. So all of a sudden, years and years later, he says literally he had to lock the door on his physicians for the team doctors and say, hey, while I get this other surgery done, I need them to take a look at this too, get this stuff out of my head. It's starting to be uncomfortable.
And mind you guys, he's a football player.
This is a football player. Millions of he's finally got it. Putting the helmet on. Now it's finally starting to irritate him. And again, this is a person that they've got tens of millions of dollars invested, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, this is one of the best football players in the league, and the doctors in charge of his health actually ended up putting him in danger because they said, hey, this is no big deal in terms of keeping him on the field. So this is a story, I think, of advocating for your own health, because when they finally went in there, and started to look at it, it wasn't a cyst. It was a rare form of cancer. Okay, on this man's skull that they had let there for 5 years.
5 whole years, and it's not like he just went in one day and say, "Hey, can you check this lump? Is it a pimple or whatever?" No, he's been telling them, and it's been growing for 5 years, and doctors didn't even bother to even test nothing.
Something like that, pimple popper stuff.
Just to go off that a little bit, that something not to that extent that it's cancer, but something like that happened with me, and I had this headache one day. I woke up and it was just on the right side of my head, a headache, just like a nagging headache. I didn't think anything of it. Took some Tylenol, went back to sleep, woke up, it was still there. It just felt like someone took 2 of their fingers and pressed it on my temple and just held it there. That's what it felt like, but it was hurting at the same time. So after a couple of days, I went to work and everything like that, and I still had the headache. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go talk to my doctor. Oh, it's just a headache. Just take some Tylenol, rest. Now a week later, same thing. It's never let up for a whole week. This headache's still there. I finally go into the ER. I'm like, I've been to the doctors. They keep telling me, I don't think it is. And I was like, can we run some tests? Have a doctor see me. It's been a week. A headache should not last more than 7 days in the same spot, in the same pain, didn't get no worse or no better. So whatever. So they did some tests. Comes back, I had a slight brain bleed.
Man.
That was causing it, right? So they kept me in the hospital for 2 days. And I'm asking, what's going on? What's a brain bleed? I didn't hit my head on anything. Or at least not in the spot where I'm feeling the pressure. So I was like, what's going to happen? Am I going to die? Like, what's going on? It's been a week. Telling me my brain was bleeding for a week, and so I ended up, they're worried about seizures that could happen. I'm learning about it. I'm like, doc, just do what you got to do. At this point, I'm like, okay, I'm already dealing with kidney stuff. I'm dealing with, so many medical things. And this is another thing that gets added on. And that's been going on for a week. So I'm a big person. If you feel like something's wrong with you, you know your body the most because you're dealing with it.
Absolutely.
If you feel like you need to get checked and specific, just go there and ask for them to test and look what it is that you're concerned about. It doesn't hurt to ask, So yeah, I mean with Trent Williams' situation, that made me mad because
what, man? I'm telling you, that thing was a trip to listen to this man.
Yeah, I was like,
wow. Literally tell us about doctors telling her, no, it's okay, don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden, when it finally comes down, now all of a sudden everybody sitting you there, nothing to say to you, just we're sorry.
Right.
Yep. And then with the contracts that they signed too, you said with the collective bargaining agreement, he can't sue because everybody in the comment section, was saying, hey, sue for malpractice. Oh, he's gonna be owning the Redskins and da da da. But it's like, no, he's like, the agreement is you can't sue the team doctors. These are assumed to be the best and brightest, in the world,
right.
Employed by these multi-billion-dollar organizations in the NFL. But again, what's their priority? What's their agenda? It's not necessarily your overall health, so that you can live, the best quality of life you can live for the rest of as long as you can live it.
It's sad, but it's true.
It's to get you out on that field on Sunday. So any and everything that they do in the meantime, in between time, you signed off on by going there, and there you go.
And it's crazy because it's like the organization, the team that has signed you has invested millions into you, and they're paying doctors to keep you on that field. So now you got a question where am I being actually checked out, like for my own health, or is this just so they could get the money out of me? You know what I mean?
There you go. The questions we need to ask ourselves. Okay, cui bono, who benefits, you know what I'm saying? Like what's up? Who is agendas being served? Again, this is the best doctor according to who? Because again, there's a lot of things that we take for granted. Again, the last episode was just about, career disappointments and career, and employment things like that, stresses. Because we make a lot of assumptions that all this money's behind this, all this, people that supposed to know such and such, have certain experience, they're supposed to have this, and then all of a sudden we figure out that they don't. What do you do with that? That's true. And again, you could even hear it in his voice when he was doing his interview, where he didn't even want to blame his doctors because he got to know these people. These are people he knows. Yeah. They know they don't mean nothing to harm this man. It was a rare form of cancer. Who could have guessed that it would be that? But the guilt, yeah.
And that's another thing too, like mentally, that you have to really sort through yourself, because like you really want to. What he did, I commend him for that. To be calm and be like, I can't just blame my doctor. It's just look at the situation and the big picture. It's a rare cancer. Maybe about 5% of the doctors come across this issue. It's not like you go in every day thinking the worst possible situation. It's not healthy to live that way.
Exactly. They're thinking like, best case scenario, Dr. Pimple Popper style, like we mentioned earlier. Okay, slice open a cyst or something right on your hairline, no problem.
Yeah, and he was even saying himself, like I would have done the same thing in his shoes.
It didn't hurt him, like he said, and that's the wild thing. It didn't hurt. Actually, as crazy as it sounds, again, this thing was really on this man's skull, and that's why they thought initially. Just brought him in once they did the first examination for real. They said, it reminded me of what you said, and they told him to get your affairs in order. When you were filling out that thing, who would you give this to? Who would you give that? When people start asking those for real questions, it can mess your mind up.
Oh yeah.
One line that somebody can utter to you: get your affairs in order.
And it's like a movie, because it feels like everything around you goes silent, and all you hear is just nothing, just silence. Like your thoughts are echoing in your head because you just heard, "Get your affairs in order." What you mean? Like you're telling me right now at this moment I'm about to die, and I have to tell you who gets my shit.
I got stuff. I got a wife and 3 daughters. Trent Williams. You know what I'm saying? I got this, and it's how fast things can change in your life, and the stress, and again how you deal with that stuff. He channeled his into obviously made a documentary, made it something encouraging. Made the most out of it. However, it's one of those things where when you see it happen to somebody of that caliber, that's why we're bringing it up. For the people that are non-sports people, it ain't really about that. This is something that we assume that these people are getting some of the best medical care. Again, it leads me to the episode again, talking about dealing with sickness. Who's really, who are these medical professionals? Who are these people we're entrusting things to when we need help and we have to turn to these people? Not want to, but have to turn. What are they really on? What's their true agenda? What's their real deal? Are they giving their best effort?
It's unfortunate.
That's wild to think about, man. Put some stress on my head listening to that interview.
Yeah, man. Because it's like, these are people you trust with your life. And not just you, your family members too. Because if you like a doctor, you're like, hey, I want you to see my cousin. He has this. Or I want to see my mom. I've seen this doctor for 10 years. She knows me. I want you to take care of my mom because I love how you do business. Like you're trusting these doctors that you trust with other people. And to find out that, we just let it slip. Sorry. Now if I'm a family member or whatever of Trent, and you say, your doctor you seen for this? I might have to switch doctors. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of emotional stuff, went behind that, because all of a sudden now they're scrambling. Of course, hindsight's 20/20, so everybody's scrambling and doing the right thing, So, but it's that, and then all of a sudden it's that guilt too of, okay, now we got to do everything, not doing enough. Can we do it enough? Can to not be optimistic enough, because that's tough too. Again, one of my second thing we published on the Consider Your Mind blog, consideryourmind.com. Check it out. It was the positives of being negative, when it's not so great to be optimistic all the damn time. Just happy-go-lucky, just, oh yeah, everything's gonna be all right, everything. That wasn't probably gonna serve him at that time. When you hear, please get your affairs in order. You got 3 daughters, and a mom worried about you. You got to really again, focus and not be fake with it, not necessarily burden somebody with it, but um, but to deal with it in a matter to keep you moving forward so that you continue to make smart decisions so that you can have a future to even talk about it.
But yeah, man, then going into that, and the other person that we were going to talk about is Michael Beasley, who's a basketball player. And when I heard this story, because I thought what he was talking about, what everyone says about Michael Beasley. Oh, he's lazy. He doesn't want to play. He's always high.
Pause, pause, pause. And again, people don't know who Michael Beasley is. He got drafted in 2008, number 2 overall pick to the Miami Heat. He got drafted the year after Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was number 2 overall pick. They used to play together, back when they were kids in D.C. And then so the next, player of the year, number 2 overall pick in 2007, that was Kevin Durant. Next year, his homie, from back in the day, number 2 overall pick out of Kansas State, Michael Beasley to the Miami Heat. So again, this is '08 back then. Number 2 overall pick, high expectations. Just to give context, supreme talent, man, it's like 6'10" as well.
Yeah,
I'm saying, could do it
he's
all.
A big dude.
Yeah. So that's to give context. He was coming in on that type of level. Okay, what he's gonna do. So again, what does that come with? A whole bunch of spotlights.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Miami and Temptation too. What?
And the big thing I got from it, I mean, that's just the title of the show itself caught my attention because he says, "I've like my whole life I've asked for help." I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? I just know Michael Beasley is a basketball player. They say he's lazy, that's why he doesn't play as much. You hear a story, and he says people always make his narratives, and now he, this is his chance to speak up, and he does, and he gets real deep in it. And I'm like, yo, he completely changed my mind about who he is as a person.
For real, man. Shout out to the Pivot podcast. That's kind of the people that used to be the I Am Athlete. They branched off to their own thing, the Pivot podcast. And again, they let him just speak. Gave him, space to just speak, unedited, for the most part, and just let it out. And that really hurt. That hit me too. If you have a heart, man, when somebody says, and it's genuine, like, I've been reaching out the whole time. I've been asking for help this whole time. I know people. I know da-da-da. They see me struggling. They see me this, that, and the third. But it's like I'm not good enough. Like that sense of not being good enough. I could see it in his eyes. Like, damn, why won't nobody help me? Am I not worth it?
All right. And when he started tearing up and bawling, well, not bawling, but he was starting to cry. I'm like, oh, man, dude. Like, you could tell that the moment he, started tearing up, everyone in that room's mood started to kind of change. At least for me when I was watching. Who was to his left? Long dreads, light skin, just like
Channing, Channing Tatum. He was a linebacker.
And he was like, I want you to come to my house. I want you to bring your kids and, play on the bouncy house, and we can just have a couple drinks and just chill. And all of them were like, yeah, it's one of those things where you see somebody struggling in front of you, like literally pouring their heart out in front of you. And I don't know, you just feel like, yo, I need to be here for this person. Like,
that shows a lot of respect because everybody, our first thing is to be so solution orientated and want to be the hero, and hey, this is what you need to do and this will solve that problem. I can get you. No, he was like, nah, man, bring your kids by, because Channing Tatum, like he said, he used to play for the Dolphins in Miami, in Miami where Michael Beasley got drafted. So he remember being excited. He had a little connection. He's like, yo, man, I remember how good you were and all of that. Now. We kind of beyond that because he's my age. He's 33. We're the same age. And so, obviously in basketball years, he's been out of the league for a while. That's kind of old. And he's holding on to, that's his identity as a basketball player. It's what he's dedicated his life to. It's what he's been told he's good at, how he's got where he's been. And so they're trying to give him that perspective as retired athletes. Like, okay, but after that, what? And the context, he's like, yo, man, all I do is play basketball. I go to the gym, I practice, then I come home. I don't see nobody. Yeah, he said, I don't leave the house because he's so afraid. Again, how do we think he's a weed smoking, not caring about the game? Because when he makes a mistake, especially back in the day, again, he got drafted in 2008. Now it's all it's looked at differently. But back then, media coverage of you, hey, if you're seen as having this violation, not knowing what you're actually going through in your personal life, whatever stresses, then that's your label. That becomes your label. And so this is this man's real journey and struggle to really reclaim his identity, similar to J.R. Smith in that way we talked about earlier in a previous episode. to reclaim his identity. No, I'm not just like this. But shout out to the Pivot podcast for saying, nah, man, it's not healthy for you just to be by yourself, just for you to go and freaking be in the house by yourself, and then you know just be go back play basketball and then be in the house by yourself, isolate yourself. When I understand it, because that's the easiest thing to do when you're going through it, when you're not feeling your best, when you're locked out of the league, he can't do what he wants to do for a living, play professional basketball in the NBA. Yo, you don't want to hear a whole bunch else. You don't want to expose yourself when all you've seen is when you're vulnerable, that you get taken advantage of. So as we mentioned with Trent Williams earlier, his family, sticking by him, obviously having daughters, young daughters to look after and stuff. But what was really hurtful to hear again from the Michael Beasley thing, from his interview, was to talk about how his kids are the only ones that's never taken from him. Transition to what the message of this episode is really about, is about family, about how his family, his mother, brothers, sisters, financial advisor, accountant, and everything, everybody in his life, the reason why he had those issues and just was in the house, it was because he didn't trust anybody. Everybody had taken from him. Since the time they could figure out he could play basketball real good, like 11 years old, playing with Kevin Durant, starting to get tall, they said, hey, they figured it out for me. They figured out I was good at basketball, and he became everybody's meal ticket.
Yeah, so I can't even imagine, he said even his mom was stealing from him. Like someone's supposed to be in your corner and have your back.
Your mama.
And and everyone that and people that should be in your corner is stealing from you. I can't imagine living like that at all. Like, that's uneasy. Like, you're walking around, people every day. And especially you're like an athlete at that caliber, you have people around you all the time, and you're walking around, you're not knowing
millions too. Now you have something to be taken from you.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Some people don't understand. Like I told my boy, my best friend one time, he was talking about how he felt like he'd been taken advantage of by certain family members, things that he didn't feel appreciated. And I said, you know what, you better be. And he would always complain too. Didn't have a bunch of money. He had kind of dreams of getting a lot of money, doing his thing. And I said, bro, you better be lucky that you don't have money right now, or that you haven't had money so far. Because imagine combining those things. You're mad at those people right now for what they didn't appreciate. Imagine the money you'd have given them, how mad at you would have been. How mad would you have been at them? Because now you've given them money on top of all that other disappointment that's going to be, now it's even deeper. Right. And so, and again, for some people too, like he expressed it as well, man, when you don't have that, foundation, that self-esteem for yourself, when you view yourself as the bad one that maybe doesn't deserve the best, well then it's difficult for you to cut off people that's taking advantage of you. You imagine this big old 6'10", superior athlete, he could whoop somebody's behind,
easily.
Easily for messing with his money. But what about him when he looks in the mirror? What's the narrative he's been told and telling himself that doesn't even believe he has the strength to cut that stuff off?
All right. And
it's
it's crazy because it's like, and come back to it again. This is family doing it to him too. Mm-hmm. And today we're talking about family conflicts and how that affects you.
That family stress.
It goes, when you're out with your friends, that should be your escape, right? And when you come home, it should be in the comfort of, your own home. Like, you feel safe here. You feel like you could, share things with your family and all this other stuff. But what does it do to you when you know you can't? And with your own family, your cousin, your brother, your sister, it doesn't matter. Like, I've seen family tear each other up over something as dumb as money. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's a real thing.
A little bit of money, exactly. Look, like I said, we was working at the bank, not a big time bank at all, my friend. Not big hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in there. Okay, but people would sell each other up river, talk about this, that, and the third, go through all these hoops to jump through to get to some money.
$100.
Just a little bit of money, man.
Yeah.
And so, I can imagine, again, somebody like him, Michael Beasley, Trent Williams, like all these NFL players whose contracts are put on TV, mind you, as well. Like, it's like we get to see how much they make. And, for the vultures, he's saying, he's trying to explain to people, maybe even create a bigger vision, for your family. But, you got $1 million issues and they ain't got $10 to rub together. They ain't trying to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
That's that stress. Again, all of a sudden you're in a different tax bracket, but you're not in a necessarily a different social bracket.
And it's crazy, man. It's unfortunate, but it's money. There's so much out of like so much money out there, but yet
Mm-hmm.
there's people broke. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is it because of their own choice and the way they choose to live?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but at the same time, on average, you have people that make I don't know what $2 grand a month. Most of the people, at least middle class, maybe $3 grand a month if they're by themselves. You know, like and
Mm-hmm.
money,
Yeah.
it
Depends on
changes
where you
people,
live.
dude. You know, like I remember even growing up as a teenager, I get a paycheck from my part-time job, $200. Oh, all of a sudden I got friends. Hey, let's go here. Let's go get a food. Listen, nah, man. Like, this ain't just your payday. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to buy things for myself. Like, nah, we'll go to McDonald's. You buy your own food. You know, like. But at the same time, it's like I don't know, man. Just money. I've seen tear people apart, families apart, especially. You know. Like, oh, he
Yeah.
owes me $5,000 because he took my car, this and that. Like, oh yeah, well you stole $200. Like, it's
Hey,
an endless
it
cycle,
leaves a
man.
lot of room for pettiness, and I've heard that
Oh yeah,
business and family, money and family don't mix. It can be the main stresses behind some things. Um, that again, in the grand scheme of things, are petty. You know, all that time you spent, warring against one each other, you could have used that to build, and get
hmm
beyond some things. I think the greatest case study in this, the most, again, of all the things that have been on television, and I'm a connoisseur of bad reality television. Okay,
hmm
it's a guilty pleasure of mine, and one of the most amazing shows ever was Iyanla Fix My Life, man. Have you ever
What is
heard
the
of
show?
that? Iyanla Fix My Life. It was on the OWN network, like Oprah Winfrey. It was
Mm.
Oprah's, network, and this lady named Iyanla, and she would go in and talk to people. She did one with T.O., Terrell Owens, another
hmm
Hall of Fame football player. But again, DMX was on it actually. Rest in peace to DMX. But
hmm
literally going in and dealing with people's family issues, family trauma. Doing the therapy that these family need. People that haven't talked to each other, um, and or people that just going through terrible things. But it's a thankless job because those people as much. It's that dichotomy, man. It's like, yo, and you experience this as well. You got a brother, you got family. I can talk about them, but you bet not talk about them.
hmm
Because there's that extra dynamic in that, even within that. So when other people
hmm
try to help outside of the family to, do that real work, it's like
That's
that's when they will form up and attack you.
yeah. I don't know. For some reason, when you're talking about the show, I thought you were going to say my 90-day fiance.
Oh,
That's what
that
I
man,
was
that
like,
again,
no.
again, that's leading. Like I said, those are my guilty pleasures. 90 Day Fiance. I just got through watching some Married at First Sight. I watch all these terrible reality
What are
television
these shows,
shows.
man? I never heard of these
Exactly.
shows.
Yeah, I know it's
I'm over
all
here watching like
bad, man.
Vikings Valhalla
Exactly.
and stuff. You watch?
Yeah, yeah. See, I like that stuff too. But I have a guilty pleasure for bad reality television, man. And actually,
I could see the
it's
appeal
just
in
it's
it.
just
You
one of my
know?
things. Yeah, it's just one of my things, and you get to see people's emotions in the raw. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite ones was Intervention. I used to watch all the time.
Yeah, I remember Intervention.
Yeah, intervention, where they do the drug interventions. People that are addicted to certain substances, they come in, and the interventions are as much about the families as much as the people themselves, because
Oh,
in
that's
and of
another thing, man.
themselves, again, I guess we're tangent right now, but in and of themselves, most addicts don't have the ability to sustain their habit, and to be an addict. You know, whatever dollar per day habit they can't just do that by themselves. There's a whole network. There's a codependency network, a support network behind that.
You
Exactly.
bringing that up just made me think, like, since we're talking about family conflicts and you deal with a family member who's an addict of some sort,
Hmm.
how do you go about? I mean, like some families, like for instance, a mother, right, would be like, I love my son so much, I can't stand to see him hurt when he's
Hmm.
not high, he's not himself. And they've got
Withdrawals and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and they've become so used to him being high that when he's not high, he's miserable. Obviously, as most addicts or people that do drugs would know that when you're not high, you don't feel quote unquote normal. You know what I mean? and you need to get that fix or whatever, you just get angry. Like if you're hungry, and all that, you're not yourself, right? So it's the same thing. It's
You're
like
not yourself
as a
when you're
family.
hungry. I'm a Snickers.
And I can see a lot of family conflicts stirring up from that, just being like, maybe my aunt doesn't like the son because she knows he smokes weed all day, and the mom doesn't know, can't see it, la da da. It's like, why are you talking down on my son? You don't know him. Like, actually, you don't know your son. Then boom, sisters don't talk no more. Like it stems from that. It can come from anything.
The family politics. We've talked about it before. Like politics, that could be one thing. All of a sudden you could have two sisters and they have kids around a similar age, and all of a sudden one sister, they had a rivalry maybe when they were younger, and now they transfer that on to the kids. Now comparing the kids, these two cousins throughout their whole lives, oh, such and such did this, well then such and such has to do that, they're enrolled in this, so then it says tit for tat, or, and this is the worst one, okay, this is the worst one. I think I'm gonna say I think, but if all of a sudden they wanted a particular gender child, but they didn't have them, and so now they're replacing another one, So and all of a sudden father always wanted a daughter or something like that. Then all of a sudden his niece becomes that daughter, and again it's even worse. I think when the mom, she wanted a little boy or something, she has daughters, and all of a sudden she has a nephew or something, and that's like the golden boy. I think there's that
they end up treating the nephew more like a son than they treat the own daughter.
Exactly, encroaching on that relationship even he will have with his mother. So there's inner family, again, those stresses we talk about. This is a big thing. We're going to go and touch on a few things, but when it comes to this family life and the stresses that we have day to day, like,
I can't even imagine. Like, even back then, like all the family drama stuff has been going on for centuries, and it's like you think it back even to the English kings and queens and the royal family.
I grew up in the church and the Bible, man. Cain and Abel, homie. Cain and Abel, the first brothers. It went south fast.
Yeah,
okay,
it's crazy, man.
Isaac and Ishmael, okay, like
it goes on way back in the day. It's just like human nature to fight and compete.
And who are those first people we encounter to do that with, to compete, to compare, to fight with? It's our siblings.
Yeah,
it's our cousins. It's our
even like you talk about a real Game of Thrones. Like my brother's the king. No, I want to be king. Let me create a coup against him because he's the next heir. He's older than me. But I'm younger. I should be stronger. People should follow me because he'll die before me. So I gotta get rid of him now if I want to rule. Like, like that's your brother. Forget about being the king. Like, that's your brother. Nah, not back then. The king meant everything. The king meant everything. They married women, their daughters, to get part of that, fortune. Marry my daughter, you would get.
Hey man, back in the day, back in the day, you would inherit wives. That's what I'm saying. Talk about King Solomon back in the day having, thousands of wives. A lot of you get inherited, man. You don't even know these people. It just came along with the position.
Meanwhile, nowadays, all the single people, maybe you just got to be a king to get a wife or an athlete. Think about it.
Hey, man. Considering my on-air personality name is Eric. Hello, I'm Eric King.
Right.
So if that's what it takes to get somebody, well then dang, I'm in the running, and I appreciate it. But no, in all seriousness. We are kind of going back to a more, I guess, primitive time, maybe in a way, in terms of mating selection, because save for some issues that are going on, in the world right now, conflict-wise, geopolitically. We're in a pretty much safe world where we get to pick people based on not need, because we can handle our own needs, but cosmetically, superficially, we can, qualify and disqualify people for very superficial stuff.
Too many options.
Yeah, and so that's the world we live in right now.
And women are put on a pedestal.
Yeah,
too much.
And again, we talked about it too. We're from the sales world, where you give too many people. If you give people too many options, they often don't pick at all. They don't select. Procrastination. Through deliberation, and so we're victims of that, man. We're getting older and lonelier, by the day. So shout out to the 90-Day Fiance, as you mentioned earlier. That's a product of what we're talking about, bro. All these bad reality shows I'm watching, Married at First Sight, 90-Day Fiance, all of this stuff where people were supposed to have perfectly normal relationships, or however, audible on the play. This world didn't mess them up. Now we're trying to marry somebody we don't even speak their language halfway across the world.
This is a topic that eventually I want to talk about, but I want to tie it into today's topic. Obviously with family conflicts, like everyone. Okay. So I saw this clip on Dr. Phil. So it was talking about pronouns or whatever, who you identify with. You identify as who they right. And there's a guy that stepped in and says, "You don't get your own pronouns. I identify, this." And I'm like, "Oh man, this is heated, right?" But then I start thinking like, I have family members that are,
Elemental P community.
Yeah.
Shout out to 'em.
And I have, relatives and close friends that are
no
gay and
smoke,
stuff like that. I don't want either. And it's like, to me, it's like, it's such a hard topic. Like, I feel like it's a conversation that should be had, but obviously that's gonna be for a different episode. But today I just want to talk about having somebody in your family disliking that community.
Oh yeah,
family member is part of that community.
Sort of stress, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and a lot of times, me personally, I don't care. You love who you love, live your life, be happy. Cool. Do what you do. Me personally, that's how I feel about it. If you're happy, who's to say you can't do this and that? It's whatever. I'm all for it. As long as you happy, that's the number one thing. And, you got people that support you and surround you. Cool, great. But it's like I've seen family members like completely tear apart because of it. I've seen fathers turn their backs on their sons because he's gay.
Absolutely.
Like, that's crazy, and then it tears the family apart. Like why? Like,
it's just, it could just be a stress in general. Because I'll speak on it from a whole different perspective. People in my family that live an alternative lifestyle. How it's literally from even the street perspective. When you kind of get a reputation or a name. Then all of a sudden you're not supposed. It's based on your masculinity. We're a very hyper masculine, culture, particularly African American culture. To be, you're the man all the time, hyper masculine, your family, your name, all of this stuff. And then so when that becomes associated with your family, it's like an excuse for people to mess with you. It's hard enough to be whatever you are on, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're a person of color, whatever other issue you got going on that people can mess with you about. Now all of a sudden, somebody in your family is like that, and now you're forced to defend that as well. It can be seen as like like this undue burden, but it's just a reality, and particularly, and this is where it becomes the issue, is you're not always in the most progressive of areas. It's different dealing, with alternative lifestyles in the hood, in quotes, as opposed to suburbia, as opposed to maybe somewhere on the coast where things are more accepted. It's all about the area you kind of live in, too, the environment that's kind of conducive, to that. But when you're in pretty limited, scarce kind of survival environments, that kind of it doesn't foster an open-minded, atmosphere in the way of life, then you have that burden on top of it as well. And I think a lot of people, again, they don't talk about it, they don't deal with it well, and there's a lot of people who, unfortunately, again, we're about life here on this program, and a lot of times they find it easier not to live life, period, if they can't live it the way that they want to live it, if they can't be themselves, and
and that kind of thing really bothers me, because it's like, who you to tell somebody how to live their life? You know what I mean? It's not affecting you. It's not hurting you. You're hurting yourself by paying too much attention to other people than yourself. And it's like,
don't watch me watch TV. You feel me?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just wild. But unfortunately, that's how it is. And that's another thing that I also want to get to is like, people say, to me, when I look at, let's say, a breaking news, like, oh, this lady was the first black lady and the CEO for this company. For me, I just like, why she gotta be the
Shout
first
out to
black?
all the hidden figures out there, because there is a lot of hidden figures. Yeah.
And to me, it's like, why she gotta be first black? Why you gotta announce it first black? Why can't you just be, she's the new CEO?
I think we're gonna get there. It's the same reason that we're doing this show. Honestly, because it's not normal yet. I guess.
And it's like people want to see that change, right? Well, you can't change it if you keep giving them the same label. You gotta just stop saying this is the first black, the first Asian. Just say, hey, this person. achieved the ultimate goal. They own this company now. They're the CEO. Awesome, great.
But you,
like,
but you
the
have
first
to
black,
actually.
you know?
But here's the thing: you have to actually deal with that person as well. Now it's different if somebody specifically doesn't wants to remain anonymous. There's ways to do things anonymously and don't want to get credit for it. But I do shout out to the people that want to encourage others to follow in their footsteps. I think I just saw the first person to cure deafness. The first person to cure deafness was a brother from South Africa. I think he's a pastor as well. That was a meme kind of going through, social media recently. Yeah. So whatever that brother's name is, he was a pastor, was also a doctor in South Africa who, figured out a way to cure deafness. Now, again, that's just representation. That gives people, again, in South Africa, maybe not the most represented. You don't associate medical excellence with South Africa, but now you have to. And so shout out to a lot of those people. Like, I think I get what you're saying, Mino, but you got to get there. I think there will be one day where, hey man, it won't even be a big thing. Just like therapy won't be a big thing, bro. It won't even be called Black Man in Therapy. What I do is just gonna be called In Therapy.
And like you said, the person is from South Africa. You told me that he created that. He's a doctor. I was like, cool. To me, like, damn, that's a doctor who's also this and that from South Africa. He cured that. That's amazing. Yeah. Not to me. I was like, oh, is that person? Is he white? Is he black? Why does that matter? He's a doctor from South Africa that cured that.
No,
his name is this. Why does?
And again, they just showed his picture and his name. Sometimes you don't even got to announce it. That's some American stuff too. That's true. Yeah. We got to say first black. Because America isn't because you know what? That's what you just said is so true. Because America isn't automatically associated with blackness. You could be an American anything. We just got through watching the Olympics, winter as well. And American necessarily doesn't have a color. But when you're talking about South Africa,
mixing pot.
And again, then you have certain names instead of, John Smith, that could be a white guy or a black guy. If you have a uniquely African, a South African name, and then you don't have to, there's no ambiguity. So I didn't even think of it like that because the post itself wasn't making it out to be like, hey, this black guy did this thing. It was just like, hey, man, it was more pride in the region in terms of being, African dude. But yeah, wow, I didn't even think of it like that. And so you just said it.
And to me, it's like,
we do it different here in America. That's true.
And why does it matter what color we are? And in 100 years, we're going to be all the same race. There's so many mixed right now. Everyone has something to bring to the table.
Maybe, I don't know. I watched that Cloud Atlas movie too. Shut up.
And they said there's going to be two types of people in the future. You'll be either ugly or beautiful. That's it.
Nah, and again, I think it'll be it's the caste system in that place because as we've noted in this podcast, this world is about relationships. It's all about who you know. It's all about getting along with people, and so the more palatable you are to people, the better looking you are. The more eloquent you are, the smarter you are, the more access you have to resources. Well, then that just gives you access to more people of like that. And so then, that whole the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Well, there really is something to that. There's definitely becoming more of a stratification, in the world. But in terms of color, I don't think it's like that, particularly, bro, because there's this entire continent, which is the youngest, continent on the earth, called Africa, with all these people there. I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to blend all that color in 100 years, bro. I know that, and a lot of Asian guys are there heavy too. A lot of construction going to Africa. China, is bringing over their own people over there, and so staying and making families in Africa. But it's going to take a whole lot longer than 100 years for us to become this big melting pot.
To me, what I'm saying is that not in our lifetime or in the next couple, but eventually, because you see so many mixed races, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican. It don't matter where you're from. Everybody. You look at now, like people ask, what's the most? I guess to the eye for the majority, what's the most attractive? Mixed people. I'm sorry to say it, but it's like if you got someone that has Asian hair and a Latina skin tone, with
describing his woman out there. Oh, you hear him?
I'm not gonna say it here, but you know what I mean. And it's like I'm just saying that eventually, people always talk about race. Like to me, I grew up, I dealt with racism myself, and there's really no point to it. I speak the same languages, to me, pisses me off when I see racism.
It's unfortunate that we still deal with that stuff when
And even my family, man, I can't.
It can go
How am I gonna
down.
be raised? I got family members of all, like my family's like the UN. We have literally every single race. We're black, white, Mexican, any type of Latino, Latina, you know, whatever. It's like it's all there.
And your family's across the U.S., ain't it? Like,
Yeah, we all over the place.
yeah, you're in California and Kansas,
California,
right? No?
Kansas, maybe soon. I'm sure. Man,
Nah, yeah, we
it's just
out here,
everywhere. It's
man.
too big, you know. And it's like,
No, it's definitely a big world out here, and we're learning it, and we're meshing more. But I think it's important to like always acknowledge the differences in us because that's what makes us, unique and what makes us attractive to other, people. That pride that you have in yourself, whatever it is that makes you you, it can't help but attract others. You know,
yeah.
that light that you got. Hey, man, everybody, not just your people that's gonna see that shine either.
you know, and this, I mean, I just say this, family, this drama, it doesn't matter where you at, or what race you are, what color you are. You're gonna have that one uncle that hates your aunt. It's just, it's just gonna happen.
I'm trying to tell you, in the midst of all the things, they can just hate each other. Period. And you know what? One thing that the conflicts in the world are showing us too, man. It's not always about color. Again, definitely not. Again, with the family stuff, because again, we're looking at geopolitics. These people look like the same color now. It's not even about this color thing. Eastern Europe and Russia and all of that stuff. Like, it's not necessary that these people look so much different. There's other ideologies and other things in politics that are in play. And so we always have to keep that in mind, man. The stresses that we have in life are enough without us having to like put all that other stuff on it. Because as you said, you're not gonna like some people already. You're not gonna like some people that you're related to that you got to see all the time. Unfortunately, families are messy, man. We haven't even touched on, for real. And again, I mentioned it briefly with intervention, but the divorces that happen and the families being ripped apart.
Oh, man.
Things still be cool, man, in families. Some stuff, not all family is a beautiful thing, but things can happen, and all of a sudden it can blow up, and things can never be the same.
Happened, because you see families that go through the divorce and remain cool, and kids are still friends. The wife is still friends with the ex-husband. That takes work. People have to put in the work.
Absolutely.
A lot of work to to get to that point. It's not easy, and again, it's not a given. And you got to understand what happened, what caused the divorce. Because some things you can never forget and never forgive, based on what has happened. But for the most part, you see
And
divorce.
you
You see, and even comes to like you see baby mommies and baby daddies having kids, and all of a sudden their new boyfriend is with the kid, but the dad's there too. Like they make it work. It takes work to do it. Because you gotta look at the kids, and that's a mature thing to do. But unfortunately, not everybody has that mindset.
And that's the truth. Everybody says the most cliche thing. It's easy to say, "Oh, I love my kids. I'm all about my kids. I do everything for my kids." But we've seen it all out there. People do not necessarily do what's best for their kids. They do what's comfortable for them, and the kids get in where they fit in, and that's just life. I think we do a lot of virtue signaling. We have that cognitive dissonance where we think in our minds that we're such virtuous people, that we care so much about this, we'd never cross such and such line. I was raised a certain way. But all of a sudden when the heat gets turned on and you see what really happens, you see yourself acting a different way. You do what's comfortable for you, man. But and that's, and at the end of the day, we're survival machines. And we go away from what's uncomfortable. Those things that are the shadows. Oh, another thing I was watching. Shout out to Mike Tyson, hot boxing. He was doing one with Kevin Hart. And it also goes along with this book I've been reading. It talks about the shadows. The shadows of your life, the stuff that you're ashamed of, the stuff that's embarrassing, that you don't put no light on, that you don't want nobody to know about you. And how that's in conflict with your ego. That idea of who you project, who you want to be. You know what I'm saying? Those people that are in leadership positions oftentimes, they're really projecting, being an extrovert, putting themselves out there. They're projecting who they actually want to be and making you believe it and making themselves believe it at the same time, even though they're not there, there yet. And so we have to be, cognizant of those things that, the shadows of us, those things that we're embarrassed about, that projection, who we want to be that we're putting about, out there, and the stress of that going back and forth. Because at the end of the day, man, we want to be whole.
Yep.
we're talking about in this. We're trying to be vulnerable on this podcast. The Consider Your Mind podcast. Consider Your Mind podcast is about wholeness.
Yeah. What was that book that you're reading again?
It's called Let Your Life
Shadows?
Speak. Yeah, Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer.
Okay.
Yeah, Parker Palmer. But he actually, again, talking about those shadows. I was just, listening to it. And also, again, synergy, zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it. Listen to the Mike Tyson episode with Kevin Hart and him making Kevin Hart talk about that, those shadows, man. And he talked about what happens when your shadow and your ego are cool. They agree with each other. They get along. Because they're diametrically opposed. Who you don't want nobody to see and who you are projecting out there. Right? Those are supposed to be on two different, sides of the spectrum. East is east, west is west, and never the two shall meet. But the wholeness part of it, and again, he didn't describe it at that. I got this from this book that I'm reading, talking about that. Okay, when they agree, it's that wholeness. The WHOLE, whole. You're the whole person, being your authentic self. That's where the mental health, exactly. That's where the health is. You see, man, exactly. To even think of that is, wow, man, a relief. The idea of it, it's like a dream. But that's the goal. That's what we're striving for, to be whole. Not to be good. Not to worry about being so damn good all the time, man. We want to be good men, be a good man, be good at this, be good at... No.
Yeah, and when it comes to mental health, guys, just remember it's every day. Make sure you prioritize your mental health every day, and for this week, obviously we're going to be talking more about it in future episodes with family conflicts and mental health in general, just an ongoing conversation that we should be having every day. And it's okay to feel not okay, you know what I mean? But that should be it for this week's episode. Next week, we got another special guest coming, yeah? He's
actually
out. Was it?
Yeah, man. It's somebody that you put us on with, your boy James.
Yeah, it'll be James. He's gonna be. I think he's beginning his licensing process. But we'll find out more about that. He's trying to become a therapist, so we'll get to know him and what his line of work is and what he specializes in. I believe he's out in California. So
West
for
Coast,
people around the West Coast, folks, and looking for some a therapist, maybe take a look into what he can do, see how he can help you and elevate your mental health.
Exactly, man. So yeah, we're excited about that. We're kind of giving you the this is part of what this show is about too, connecting you all with the resources for your mental health as well. And for those who you're thinking about therapy, again, go back to our previous episode with Rupert Missick in episode 5, and talking about hypnotherapy. And so we're excited for this episode because we're gonna kind of bring us through his journey of how he got into the mental health arena, the mental health space, and to want to become a therapist. And so for anybody out there that's thinking about it, hey man, this is more encouragement to go ahead and take the leap and go ahead and reach out to somebody. So we can't wait till next week, and we hope you tune in with us, man.
Yep, and that's all for me for this week. Other than that, guys, we'll see you next week.
Peace.